Hello and welcome to Wrestling in 1985, Episode 4. On this episode, I will be talking about Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. And as usual, we will be starting in January of 1985. Unfortunately, Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling was a seasonal territory, so in January, there is no wrestling. The season would kick off in May, and the champions going into this season would be the International Heavyweight Champion, the Super Destroyer. The North American Tag Team Champions were Killer Karl Krupp and Hans Hermann, and the Maritime Heavyweight Champion was Big Steven Pettipa. The earliest card I could find was from May 30th of 1985 in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. On that card, the Super Destroyer defended the international title versus Rick Patterson. Also that night, Killer Karl Krupp and Hans Hermann defended the North American Tag Team titles versus Big Steven Pettipa and Man Mountain Mike. Later on in his career, Man Mountain Mike would work for the WWF under the name Bastion Booger. Also on the card that night would be No Class Bobby Bass, Buddy Lane, Joey Warcloud, and the Cuban Assassin. By June, more stars are in the territory, the likes of the Great Malumba, Lenny Montana, Stompin' Paul Peller, Steve Austin, not Stone Cold Steve Austin, and by July, the Alaskan and Sweet Daddy Siki are in the territory. Even Leilani Kai wrestled for Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. Earlier in the year, she was the WWF Women's Champion and defended that title at the first ever WrestleMania. In July, Leo Burke made his return to Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. In 1984, Leo Burke had left Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling to help reform international wrestling with his three brothers, the Beast, Bobby K, and Rudy K, and legendary wrestling promoter Al Zink. Leo Burke would challenge Rick Martel for the AWA World Heavyweight title while in international wrestling, but the company would not return in 1985. Upon Leo Burke's return to Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling, he would challenge the International Heavyweight Champion, the Super Destroyer, but he would come up short. Most websites online claim that Killer Karl Krupp won the International Heavyweight title from the Super Destroyer in 1985 and then lost it right back to the Super Destroyer, but I could not find any proof of that happening. There are a few recordings of the TV shows that have survived. One of the full episodes from early July introduces Big Steven Pettipa as the new International Heavyweight Champion. He also has the Maritime Heavyweight title. The Maritime Heavyweight Championship was introduced in 1984 and the first champion was Big Steven Pettipa. There is a chance that the Maritime Heavyweight title belt itself is the same belt that Leo Burke held in 1976 and 1977 in international wrestling, when he was the Maritime Heavyweight Champion. According to some websites, once again, it claims that Big Steven Pettipa lost the Maritime title to the Super Destroyer in 1985 before winning it back. Once again, I see no proof of this ever happening. On the same episode from early July of 1985, the Cuban Assassin would come out to help the babyfaces, and he would turn babyface for the first time in his wrestling career. This would lead to a very successful partnership with Leo Burke. It was so successful that in 1986, Leo Burke and the Cuban Assassin would win the North American Tag Team titles together. One of the big stars that would become a regular for Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling was Rotten Ron Starr. Ron Starr would start 1985 as a babyface, but by August he was a heel. And not only was he challenging Big Steven Pettipa for the International Heavyweight title, but he was winning his first of 4 International Heavyweight titles. The Maritime Heavyweight title was retired during Big Steven Pettipa's International Heavyweight title reign. 1985 would also feature the Little Wrestlers. In one match, Farmer Pete took on Sky Lolo in a blindfold boxing match. The Cuban Assassin would feud with No Class Bobby Bass and Sweet Daddy Siki for the rest of 1985. Rotten Ronstar would feud with Leo Burke for the rest of the season. Rotten Ronstar would even defend the International Heavyweight title versus Leo Burke in a chain match in September. At some point in 1985 or 1986, Leo Burke won the International Heavyweight Championship. It is uncertain if Leo Burke won the belt in a real match or if this was a phantom title change. A phantom title change means that the title change happened, but the match did not take place. Promoters would just say the match happened, even though the match never took place. The best example of a phantom title change happening is the first ever Intercontinental Champion Pat Patterson, who claims that he won the title in a tournament in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, but it just never happened. They just awarded him the title and claimed that he won a tournament. Leo Burke would hold the International Heavyweight Championship until June, when he would lose the title to Frenchie Martin on the June 28th episode of the TV show. The North American Tag Team Champions to start 1986 was The Spoiler and Nikita Kalmykov. This was not the more famous Spoiler, but Calgary wrestler Carl Moffat, who portrayed Jason the Terrible in Stampede Wrestling. They would hold the North American Tag Team titles until August of 1986. They lost the titles on the August 16th TV episode to Leo Burke and the Cuban Assassin. And that was the story of Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling in 1985. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you next week.